Let's run it up with a little Eagles mailbag. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr. Hope all of you out there are enjoying yourselves and having a fantastic 4th of July weekend. Looking forward to opening up the floor and taking all of your questions. Before we do all of that, just some dates for all of you to remember here because the Eagles season is going to be here before we know it. Training camp starts on July 22nd, so we're less than 3 weeks away. Preseason opener is going to be against the Cincinnati Bengals on August 7th. The Eagles will be holding an open practice at Lincoln Financial Field, their only open practice to the public, on August 10th. And then the regular season opener after 2 more preseason games will go down at the Link as the Eagles lift their Super Bowl 59 banner right in front of the Dallas Cowboys. And with that, the official start of the 2025 season gets underway. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I always have you covered with the best Eagles coverage right here on YouTube. And anytime we push out content, we want it to be insightful, informative, entertaining, thought-provoking, and we always want you to have a voice. Speaking of you having a voice, let's start to take your questions here with our mailbag. And let's get it started with Khalil Plu. He asks a couple of questions here. Who was a better coach, Doug Peterson or Nick Siani? Who was a better quarterback, Nick Foles or Jalen Hurts? And who would win in a game, the 2017 Eagles or the 2024 Eagles? Obviously, the two teams who have won the only 2 Super Bowls in the history of this organization. The first question is a good one. Better coach, Doug Peterson or Nick Siani? I think Sirianni's going to be with Philadelphia for a longer period of time, and he's put together a more successful career to start. He's made it to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. Of course, Doug Peterson made it, like Nick Siani, to a Super Bowl in his 2nd year. Peterson won his lone Super Bowl appearance. Siriani lost his first Super Bowl appearance. Doug Peterson called plays. Nick Siani doesn't call plays. So who's the better coach? It's a really difficult one to answer because it really comes down to what you're looking for. Do you value a CEO head coach more who oversees the entire operation? Because I think Sirianni has done a better job of that. I think he's had a better pulse of what's going on in the locker room with the organization, and he runs a better ship organizational wide from that sense. Doug Peterson, on the other hand, man, that 2017 Eagles team came out of nowhere. They had to deal with all of those injuries. His starting quarterback went out. Then he caught fire alongside Nick Foles. That playoff run to start was a little bit choppy, but then in the NFC Championship game and in the Super Bowl, that offense was on fire. But then the following 2 years when the Eagles did make it to the playoffs, they were awful at the start of the year, and they had to get hot in the month of December. And they were able to rally and do that. Sirianni's had more consistency. I also think Howie Roseman has been in his bag more with Sirianni as compared to Dougie P. So I'm going to side with Sirianni. I don't think that's recency bias. But again, if you like a play caller, it's Peterson. I just think Sirianni's done a better job as an overall head coach. And I'll take that over just calling plays. Who's the better quarterback, Nick Foles, Jalen Hurts? Jalen Hurts. And he's going to have the better career. Nick Foles has one of the more fascinating careers for any quarterback ever. He had the 22-3 touchdown interception ratio year with Chip Kelly. Then the Eagles got rid of him. Then he came back, and he was a great backup. And then once he filled in for Carson Wentz during that Super Bowl run, he was great. The following year, he helped to rally the Eagles to make it to the playoffs and won a playoff game in the wild card round. They should have won in the divisional round against New Orleans. The Alshon Jeffrey drop, that was crushing. Jalen Hurts, though, definitely a better quarterback, better team. 2017 or 2024, definitely going 2024. Probably the most talented Eagles team of all time, and they took down the Kansas City Chiefs in dominant fashion in a game that was never close. Shane Baker and the Box Ghost, both with offensive line questions here. How great will our offensive line be this year? How big of a drop-off, this one from the Box Ghost, will we see at right guard without the mountain in Mekhi Becton, who, by the way, wanted to stay for a discount, opened some huge holes for Saquon last year. No doubt, Mekhi Becton was terrific last year. And you look at this Eagles offensive line. Joey Peterson, great coworker and friend here at Chat Sports, asked me, how many elite players are there on the Philadelphia Eagles roster? And I went through offense. 10 of 11 starters are elite, in my opinion. And the only question mark I had was at right guard. Regardless of how well Tyler Steen plays, he might not play as well as Mekhi Becton. But to answer Shane Baker's question, how great would this offensive line be? I think they're going to be a great unit because Jordan Mailata is one of the top left tackles in the game. Landon Dickerson, one of the top guards. Cam Jurgens, one of the best centers. Lane Johnson is the best right tackle in the game and a potential future Hall of Famer. I think he's on that track. So I think the Eagles offensive line will be great in 2025. I also really like the depth of this unit. You drafted Miles Hinton. I think that he can be a good player. You drafted Cameron Williams. I think if he went back to college, he could have been a first-round pick in 2026. Holland Pierce as a UDFA. Drew Kendall as a sixth-round pick. You have Kenyon Green, Trevor Keegan, Matt Pryor. You have Kendall Lamb as a backup tackle. The depth and the overall talent of this group is really special. But yeah, there could be a little bit of a drop-off going from Mekhi Becton to Tyler Steen. Another one from Shane Baker. Do you think our new play caller will live up to last year? Big shoes to fill for Kevin Petula. I thought Kellen Moore did a great job last year. This Eagles offense was a top 10 overall unit, the best rushing offense in the NFL. Kellen Moore with Dallas, with Los Angeles, was looked at as a pass-happy play caller and offensive coordinator. He adapted and adopted his approach to the strength of the team. That's what good coaches do. And he relied on the best offensive line in football, the best running back in football, in Saquon Barkley. And sometimes offensive play callers are very stubborn. They don't like to go away from what they've done in the past because that's their calling card. That's what they hang their hat on. Kellen Moore was willing to be malleable to the betterment of the team. And then when the Eagles needed to throw a little bit more in the playoffs, NFC Championship game, in the Super Bowl, they did that. Kellen Moore was creative. He brought pre-snap motion to this offense. He made good in-season and in-game adjustments, and he catered to the strengths of the personnel. So what I want to see from Kevin Petullo is a lot of that, but will he bring fresh concepts, new ideas? Will he get creative? Will he have his own spin? Will the Eagles continue to implement pre-snap motion? The interview that I did with him at the Super Bowl, which we've played a few times here on the show, was a good indication of what he's going to bring to Philadelphia. I liked what he had to say. Hopefully Nick Siani doesn't put the training wheels on him and he lets Petullo do his thing. So I think that Petullo can have a good year, and hopefully he does better than what Brian Johnson did in 2023, the last time the Eagles ran into the situation where they lost an offensive coordinator. Shane Steichen then, Kellen Moore now. Philly edits. Do you think that the Eagles can go back-to-back? I do. I think that the pathway in the division leads to Philadelphia being the best team in the NFC East. I think that they can become the first team since 2004, when the Eagles last did it, to win back-to-back NFC East titles. There has not been a repeat winner in this division since then. I think that even though the Eagles lost a lot of players defensively, they have the cheapest defense in the NFL going into 2025 at just over $60 million combined team spending on that side of the ball, but they're still young, talented, dynamic. You have no changes on the defensive side of the ball with that staff, so you do have continuity there, whereas you don't have it offensively because you lost Doug Nussmeier, quarterback's coach, and Kellen Moore. But this Eagles team is still one of the most talented, one of the most deepest, one of the most well-coached teams in the entire NFL. And I would put the Eagles up against any team in the league. If health stays on their side, they can go back-to-back. Alfredo, do you think that Saquon Barkley gets 2K flat in the postseason and regular season again? So in the regular season last year, Saquon Barkley, who is getting ready for training camp, he posted these photos on his Instagram on Wednesday. He's looking incredible. I mean, 8-pack abs, are you kidding me? The guy is just built different. Looks to be in fantastic shape. He's been managing his offseason workload a little bit to try to stay fresh. He's been consulting with the likes of Edgerrin James, Marshall Faulk, him and Nick Sirianni, Jerome Singleton, the Eagles running backs coach. They've been really trying to come up with creative ways for Saquon to train, but to stay recovered and to stay fresh after leading the NFL in touches last year. There is no running back in the history of the NFL who has run for 2,000 yards in the regular season in consecutive years. Behind this offensive line, with these offensive weapons, with Jalen Hurts in the backfield helping him run the football successfully, with the shape that he's in, the unique athlete that he is, if he can stay healthy, who's to say that Saquon can't run for more than 2,000 yards? It's going to be difficult. History shows he's not going to do it, but that's fine. If he runs for more than 1,000 yards, I think this Eagles offense can still be a top 5, top 10 unit. Rupert 1491. Which Super Bowl ring is better, the first one or the second one? I'm hoping the second ring gets revealed before they answer questions. So the Eagles were supposed to get their Super Bowl rings a couple of weeks ago. There was a delay because of the process of putting together the Super Bowl rings. A lot of diamonds, and obviously a very thorough and complex process to put together Super Bowl rings. Which ring was better, 2017 or 2024? Look, the Eagles have some of the most impressive Super Bowl victories and championships of all time. Hear me out. In 1960, before there were Super Bowls, the Eagles won the NFL championship. They beat the Green Bay Packers. Get this. When they beat the Packers, they handed Vince Lombardi his only playoff loss of his coaching career. Incredible, right? Then with their 2 Super Bowls, 2017, 2024, they took down Tom Brady and Bill Belichick with a backup quarterback, Philly special, Brandon Graham strip sack, the huge Malcolm Jenkins hit, the Zach Ertz 4th down conversion from Nick Foles, the Zach Ertz go-ahead touchdown. So many iconic plays in that game. Alshon Jeffrey mossing the defender, LeGarrette Blount running wild. That was a great win, and you beat Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, right? In 2024, after you ended the Patriots' run for a dynasty with Brady and Belichick, and you take them down when they were in their prime, you beat Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and you end their quest for a three-peat as they look to become the first team ever to accomplish that. And it's not just that you did that. It's how you won that game. So nobody thought really the Eagles were going to beat the Patriots. I did. Nobody thought the Eagles were going to beat the Chiefs. I did. Which win was more impressive? What's the better ring? I'm going to go with Super Bowl 59. It's ending the Chiefs' three-peat, them being underdogs, them capping off what was an incredibly dominant year where they started the year 2-2. They didn't lose again until that Commanders game when Jalen Hurts got hurt. They went on that incredible run for the rest of the year. They had such a special team, so many great individual performances, and it's the way that they annihilated the Kansas City Chiefs in front of everybody. That goes down as one of the most dominant Super Bowl victories in the history of the NFL, whereas the 2017 ring, it was the first one, but it wasn't as dominant. So I'm going to go Super Bowl 59. You guys can let me know down in the comment section. Who are the top 3 guys under 31 that are most likely to stay Eagles for life? Oh, that's a good question because this roster is so loaded. A lot of players under 31. Jalen Hurts has that opportunity. Devontae Smith has that opportunity. Jordan Mailata has that opportunity. Lane Johnson's over 31. He's not going to play anywhere else, but he's going to be a lifetime Eagle. Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. If I could pick 3 players who will stay Eagles for life, Jalen Hurts, Jalen Carter, and one of Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, I mean, that's really, really hard to do, but a good question right there. Look, I know I'm taking your questions here on Eagles Now. If you want to ask me a question on social media, or if you want additional personal coverage from me talking about the Birds, give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. Large platforms over there on X, reaching a few million people per month. On IG, the last month, I've reached well over 5 million people, so a big reach over there as well. Eagles Super Bowl shirts are on sale, limited time only, and you don't want to miss this deal. These Super Bowl shirts were $40. They are now just $18. Get yours today, chatsports.com/SB shirt. You use that link, it takes you to Fanatics. Fanatics will know that Chase Senior, Eagles Now, and Chat Sports sent you. You don't want to miss that deal. You can revel in the Eagles Super Bowl 59 championship, and this shirt is never going to get old. So get yours today. Philly Carl, 92270. If Montrell Johnson and A.J. Dillon are neck and neck, who makes the 53? That's a good question right there. I would say A.J. Dillon, because there's an opportunity that Montrell Johnson could still land on the practice squad, whereas I think A.J. Dillon would not clear waivers and he would get picked up by another team. I also think Dillon brings a unique set of skills to this Eagles team with how big he is, 240, 250, and a physical back who I think can be this year's version of what LeGarrette Blount was in 2017. Big Cass 1. What is the best thing about the team this year? I really like their mentality. I think that how they lost Super Bowl 57, they didn't respond to that well, and they expected the following year to be easy. I think there was a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover. Now that the Eagles won, there's this hunger to go on this special dynastic run. There's this hunger to win another ring. They're not content with that Lombardi trophy. They won another one, and as uber competitors, you love to see that. Sometimes with human nature, you win a championship and you're like, I'm good. I don't need to train as hard. It's going to be easy like it was, or we're going to be able to get back to the promised land once again. That's not promised, and the Eagles know that. So you hear what Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Lane Johnson and Saquon Barkley and Nick Siani have said. They're not content with that title last year. They want to run it back. Tanner Plummer, 1996. Do you think the Eagles have gone a little overboard with the youth movement on defense? It's a good question. I don't think they've gone overboard. I think it's a little bit risky, but you can see why they've made the moves that they've made, right? Josh Sweat, not worth $19 million. Milton Williams, they were never going to pay $26 million to him. Darius Slay, 1 year, 10. That was certainly affordable, but I think they really like their young DB room with Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and Keely Ringo. Also, they signed Adoree Jackson for nothing. That's the veteran replacement there. I didn't like trading away C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That's a move I never would have made. That, to me, could come back to bite them because he's really been terrific for this team in the 2 years that he was with the Eagles. And sometimes when you miss that swagger, leadership, heart and soul, the heartbeat, it's hard to replace that. So I didn't like that move. But still, you lose all of those players. Moro Ajomo can step in for Milton Williams. I think that Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt can step in for Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat. I think that Andrew Makuba and Sidney Brown can help fill the void that you lose with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I still think this Eagles defense can be a top 5 overall unit. They're the cheapest unit, Tanner, in the NFL at like $65 million. And so that's a smart team building strategy with all of the financial resources devoted to the offense. And they have more than $30 million in cap space right now. So they're budgeting some of that money, I think, to then invest in the defense after this year with core players like Nolan Smith, Reed Blankenship, and Jalen Carter. Right 3R. Do we have cap space to sign or trade for another player or to save it to sign Jalen Carter? So working off of what I said with Tanner, cap space can be rolled over year to year. If the Eagles don't spend any more money, that cap space can be rolled over. Now, of note, they still have to sign Andrew Makuba. That's going to occupy some of that cap space, but it's not going to be a ton of money. And I did a video on this earlier in the week, and people were like, Chase, did you forget Andrew Makuba signed? No. The Texas Longhorns put together an article of what he is going to get paid, and that's already determined, given the draft slot. But he hasn't signed that contract yet. So a little bit of that money will go toward Andrew Makuba. Will the Eagles make another move? They could address corner. They could go after a guy like Asante Samuel Jr. I think they want to see what happens in training camp, and they want to evaluate that position. They want to evaluate the safety position. Can Sidney Brown, Andrew Makuba, Lewis Seen, Andre Sam, Tristan McCullum, can they earn that starting job next to Reed Blankenship? Does Vic Fangio likes what he sees from those young players? Or do they need to make a move for a Julian Blackmon, who Nick Sirianni knows from his Colts days, or a Justin Simmons? So I don't think they're going to make a huge splash move, but they have the cap space in order to bulk up the roster a little bit. I think they want to evaluate the roster once they get on the field, once they pop pads in training camp. And then lastly, Barkley Productions. Will the Eagles trade Nolan Smith? I don't think they do. A young, emerging player who really came on last year, 6.5 sacks in the regular season, 4 sacks in the playoffs. I think he's only going to continue to get better, and I think the Eagles really value what he brings to the team in the locker room. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for all of the questions. Thank you for all of you tuning into the mailbag, and we'll catch you soon here. Have a great and safe 4th of July weekend.